So let's start with the first one. I would like to introduce Raanan Adin. Raanan Adin is the Vice Chancellor at the Guangdong Technion-Israel Institute of Technology. He's also the leading of the launching of the Guangdong Technion Technology Entrepreneurship Center. Raanan is also the chairman and president of Israel Water Association and a strategic advisor to public and private organizations in innovation, technology, and commercialization. He has over 30 years of experience in executive position in global high-tech and environments. Raanan, I would like you to join. Raanan is going to give us a pitch about tips and innovation and entrepreneurship. Raanan, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. It's my honor to be here and my privilege to give at least some of my knowledge and experience to the future generation, and particularly to the future generation who is active in generating their own future in this innovation and entrepreneurship contest. So really thank you very much. I will share screen now, and through this presentation, share what I can with you this time. Okay. So as you mentioned, my topic is tips on innovation and entrepreneurship, and we will first talk about innovation, then entrepreneurship, and see how everything comes together. At the end, I will say a few words about GTIIT, the university, the institution in which I'm working and developing the university industry or university community relationship and commercialization, or giving value to research results. So first, let's start by definition. Right? What do dictionaries say about innovation? Innovation is a new idea, method, or device, or novelty. So what's novelty? Something new or unusual. It's the introduction of something new, or what dictionary.com says, something new or different. Everything seems to be the same. So that's the definition. I'm sure that this doesn't feel too new to you, but I want to point out the difference between the definition of innovation and the meaning of innovation, or what it means to us. And for that, I'm going to use something that a consulting company in the US did, Idea to Innovation, Idea to Value. They asked 26 experts what innovation means to them, and came out with 26 definitions. Don't need to read all of them. You can go to the website if you're interested. But what they did afterwards, they tried to find certain elements in innovation, in the definitions of innovation, that repeated themselves more frequently. And this is the list they came up with. 60% of the definition mention having an idea. But this we already know. But 60% of them, of course, some of the definitions are more than just one thing. So they can include multiple meanings. Also mentioned executing the idea, meaning not just having it, but it needs to be executable. And another set of findings, I grouped them together because this, to me, it makes sense, is that it addresses a real challenge or adds value or to the company or to the customer, meaning it has some actual value, it solves a challenge. So that's maybe the difference between the definition of innovation and what it means to us. So it needs to be an idea that can be executable or feasible and solves a problem. So this is the basic importance of an innovation. It addresses a need, or brings us from a need through the innovation to a solution. Or you can say that it creates a bridge from a current reality to a wanted reality. That's when we say it closes a gap, and that's the gap that it would close. This is what I would call a conventional innovation. Right? Something, sometimes we say, find the pain, find what people are missing, and then find the innovation that solves it. That the conventional innovation. The sometimes unconventional innovation is what we call the disruptive innovation, or innovation that changes things in a more dramatic way, and not necessarily aims at solving a certain problem, though it does, but it does it in a very different way that completely changes reality. I can give two maybe well-known examples. One of them is Airbnb, the other is Uber. I mean, even without Airbnb and Uber, because, you know, I'm old enough to know the world before Airbnb and the world before Uber, I could always find a hotel room and I could always get a taxi. But Airbnb and Uber made something totally different. They brought everyone into the market and allowed the way that things are being chosen or found totally different. But there are drawbacks to innovation, although the question mark there is on purpose, because I'm not sure I can call them drawbacks. Some literature addresses these issues, and they say, okay, the enemy of the good is the better. This is a common proverb in Hebrew, and it's many times very true, because sometimes we try solving problems that aren't really there. I mean, the world is okay, and the fact that you can do something better doesn't mean you have to. And we could get carried away with an idea that, well, it's good, it's better than what we have, but we don't really need it. So, but is that a drawback? Well, pursuing it is not a drawback. Sometimes we find a certain specific innovation to be premature, to be not in the right time or not in the right place. The other observation, it's an observation that was made about 100 years ago by an economist called Joseph Schumpeter, a German economist who immigrated to the US and did research in Harvard. And 100 years ago, he identified that technology and innovation create monopolies. And they create it mainly through patents. And usually when we hear monopoly, we say, oh, monopoly is not good. It creates domination of the market, it creates increased prices, etc., etc. But here is where the question mark comes into place, because this monopoly is what enables companies to get their ROI, to get their return on investment. It enables them for a certain limited amount of time to take higher prices, to be dominant in the market, and to do it legally. And this justifies the investment that they made in creating this innovation or disruption in the market. So although it's a sort of drawback, this drawback is also a motivator to innovation. So this is, like, in a nutshell, a few aspects of innovation that I wanted to share with you. And let's talk a bit about entrepreneurship. Now, it's more difficult to find definitions of entrepreneurship because dictionaries like to define entrepreneur. So the entrepreneur is one who organizes, manages, and assumes risk of a business or enterprise, or again, in other words, by other dictionaries, define the same thing. So the second definition makes it even more general. An employer or of productive labor or a contractor could also be called an entrepreneur, meaning as long as they do something that is productive, they are the entrepreneurs of this. Or entrepreneurship is the activity of being an entrepreneur. But again, I ask, not the definition, but what's the meaning of entrepreneur? Or what's the meaning of entrepreneurship for us? Somebody has the microphone open. I'm sorry, somebody has the microphone open. It's a bit difficult for me to talk.
Everyone can close their microphone. Please close your microphone.
Please mute. Okay, anyway, I will continue. So, so again, I ask, what is the meaning of entrepreneurship? If we think deeply and look deeply, even in the definition, there's one thing that we identify with entrepreneurship, and that's risk. An entrepreneur takes risks. And I will even say it more bluntly, if there's no risk, it's not really entrepreneurship. It's okay, it's business. There's risk in everything, but to be an entrepreneur, you need to tell yourself, okay, I'm taking risks. When I take risks, also sometimes I fail. What does that mean? It means that not all businesses survive. This is information from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. And they surveyed the market, and they saw that after 2 years, only 80% of businesses survive. And after 5 years, only 55%. After 10 years, only 35%. And only 25%, 1 out of 4, survive more than 15 years. Wait a minute, these are fantastic numbers. We are used to hearing other numbers about startups. And that's right, these numbers are for conventional businesses. And if you ask about startups, if you ask people in the startup sector, in the technological or more innovative and risky sector, you will hear, okay, well, 9 out of 10 startups fail. And these are numbers which we feel as more, I wouldn't say comfortable, but they are more resembling or more representing reality. But I'm not a negative person. I don't want to talk about failure. So when you ask me, I will tell you that typically 1 out of 20 startups succeed. Right? So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, this should not bother you. It should not bother you because your startup could be the one. And by going to these competitions, by listening to the next lecture on how to build a business plan, and by involving yourself, your specific chances could be much, much, much higher. So let's continue and see how. Well, first of all, let's identify the reasons. Why do we have such a low survival rate? Because we're following an idea, an innovation. It could be technologically not feasible because the idea is new. Some ideas don't work. It could be economically not feasible, meaning we cannot justify the cost or justify it versus its competition or its conventional solutions. Could be that the market size is too small. Right? Maybe we developed something, we thought everybody will have to use our new tool, but you know what? Not everybody really needs it. When the first version is maybe partial, etc. And this can also, it's very important to identify these things. I'm sure that when you will talk about business plans and business analysis, you will address these issues in more details. Another issue, of course, is insufficient funding. Insufficient funding has many, many aspects to it. The one thing I can say, insufficient funding is usually a combination of not asking for enough money and not spending it according to plan. So we need to be very, very careful with these issues. And another point is, of course, these are not all the reasons, just a few I want to highlight. Regulations. Regulations is a key issue. Regulations are sometimes a driver for innovation, because new regulations will force us to change things in the products or in the market. Sometimes there are limitations because regulations might be lagging behind the technology. If we're developing something with a new material, we need to know that the market accepts it. And then we need to look at the processes. Okay? Ideas can come from university, can come from what we call the backyard, from home, and they have several valleys to cross. We sometimes call these valleys of death, meaning in any of these valleys, we might not cross and not be able to continue our startup. And two of these are a bit harder to cross than others, and these are the funding valleys. This is persuading someone else, which is not us, not the team, not someone close to us, someone else to invest in something that we believe in. And when we look from their side, they have lots of ideas. We need to make them invest in ours. So addressing this is also an important issue. Okay. So if we look at the evolution of a company, a lot of the ideas, if not almost all or all of them, start somehow from scientific research. They go through the applied research, or what we call in industry R&D, research and development. And when this is mature enough, the model or the modeling of the science into applied formulas is good enough, we can design or engineer a product, which we can then produce according to these designs or instructions. And once it's produced, it's possible to sell it and to support it until we need to dispose. And this is intentionally green because we would like to reuse or recycle as much as possible. So following this top to bottom is what an entrepreneur could or should have in mind when they start their business, and it will make their whole perception of what they're doing and the way that they present their startup, particularly to investors, more mature. And here I want to mention another type of entrepreneur, which is the intrapreneur. Many of you, many of us eventually find ourselves in big companies or big organizations, and we are eventually intrapreneurs, meaning we are innovating and developing things within a big organization. As an entrepreneur, we have a very different environment than an entrepreneur. And of course, the entrepreneurship is acting like an entrepreneur within an established company or a big organization. And we can look at what are the challenges of an entrepreneur, or the challenges of entrepreneurship. Of course, they're racing against time, which is many times also racing against the funding or the end of the funding. They are lacking infrastructure. Every startup needs to work in whatever they have. Everything is new, and they need to use infrastructure of others or acquire it in big efforts. Lacking of manpower is evident, and of course, access to talents. Market reach is just preliminary. Even experienced people, they have their own market reach, and that's it. And the brand is yet to be established. When you look at intrapreneurship, their benefits are exactly all of these. They have time because they are working in a place. Usually, if they are entrepreneurs, it means that the workplace allows it. They have funding from the big company, again, in companies which allow it. They can use the infrastructure of the big company, tap the manpower of the organization, reach the talents, because every big organization has the talents. They already have the market reach through existing customers, and the brand is there. So being an entrepreneur is very different, but it has its own challenges. Right? So this I just wanted to mention, and we can keep this in context in some of the things we discuss. So to summarize, because we do have limited time, let's get into a bit about specific tips of innovations. First of all, learn and understand the following terms: innovation, invention, and patent. No, they are not the same. They are very different. And read about them, understand them, and learn to differentiate between and to use them in your different interactions with partners, investors, of course, the patent offices, and your colleagues, and also with yourself. Focus on the meaning of innovation. As we said earlier, it has to be new, needed, and feasible in order to be relevant for anything that can be turned into a startup and eventually into a business. Question everything always, because then you can generate the innovation and improve it and evolve it. Innovation is a process, not, okay, I have an idea and that's it. But remember when to stop. Remember, the enemy of the good is better. Sometimes that's where it also disrupts us. Oh, I have another idea, I have an additional idea, I can expand it, improve it a bit more. And the startup never ends. So if you're in a team, you also need to listen to the CEO, even if you are the CEO, even if you are the innovator and the CEO, you need to have this dual personality and sometimes listen to yourself, to the business side, telling you, okay, we need to freeze. We need to freeze this minimal viable product and other terms that you will hear about. It's important to confirm your assumptions. This also relates to the size of the market. Right? You developed a new shoe. Everybody needs shoes, but maybe not everybody needs this shoe, and you would like to know when to start or where to start with your shoe, and then reconfirm your assumption. Again, it's a process, a continuous process. A bit about entrepreneurship. I'll say a few things about the Hebrew culture. Hebrew culture is identified with entrepreneurship. I will show you in a nutshell how this may work. First of all, in the Hebrew culture, reading starts at the age of 3. Right? Why? How does this apply to us? None of the people here are 3, but everybody is new to innovation and to entrepreneurship. What's important is learn to read the terminology. Okay? And there's lots of it. Right? And these are just a few of the terms that you must learn and understand if you want to be an entrepreneur and if you want people to say, oh, wow, this is a real entrepreneur. So learn to read. Chavruta is a sort of action during learning that it's part of questioning everything, but question everything together. Meaning for us, teamwork. Work in a team, but not just in a team saying, okay, you take care of technology, I'll take care of the finance, and he will take care of the work plan. No, teamwork means there's a lot of interaction and a lot of interdisciplinary exchange within the team. Everything is quenchable. I already said this is a very dominant part of the Hebrew culture, also in the team, also in the company. Open door means there are particularly within the company and also when it's evolving, you want to say something to someone, then anyone at any level needs to allow this to happen, or things might be missed or frozen, or mistakes that could be avoided might happen. And chutzpah is a totally complete lecture can be given on chutzpah, but it means in some way dare or courage, and that's what entrepreneurs and innovators usually already have. So not much to say about that in this forum. Just to continue about these tips, the team is very important. Yes, it's the most important because the idea might change. The team is what usually goes the whole way. Feasibility opens the door to funding. I mean, you have the idea, prove it feasible, it will open the door to funding. But proving the feasibility sometimes needs seed funding. So seed investment opens the door to feasibility. If you know the terms from the previous slide, you will know where you are on this TRL, technology readiness level, or on this feasibility funding milestone or timeline. Technology is a tool, not a target. I find myself saying this again and again. We're developing solutions using technology. Right? We're not developing just the technology. Please try to remember that and consider with the solution, you need to consider the supply chain, the knowledge in that area, the technical staff or managerial staff, transportation and access. Sometimes say, okay, I want to build something for the desert and or for distant places, or I want to build something for the center of big cities. These are very different. Energy considerations are always important. I challenge you to find out how much energy is spent on searching in a search engine, writing in a search engine energy and getting the results. Have you ever asked yourself how much energy this consumes? I'm not going to tell you. You are welcome to look for this yourself. And there are always culture and governance issues which will dominate the first implementation, the first sector, the segment that you're going to address. And this sometimes gives an advantage to local innovation, meaning or either to innovate locally or to apply locally what you innovate. So continuing with the tips, use levers. We talk about a lot about leverage. Find partners, find investors, use government incentives. Okay. Connect with organizations. There are many organizations, industry organizations, also some non-profit and non-government organizations which are glad to help. Talk with customers, talk with suppliers. Some of them will help you because they like to, and some of them will help you because they want to be part of the future business. Choose your investors wisely. What type of investor will you need and what type of investor may find you relevant for the investment, and define very well the funds needed. To the question, how much do you need? You have to have an immediate answer. Even waiting 1 second before you answer seems you are hesitating. How much do you need? I need this much. Right? Always have that number ready with you. Look at the market in a very observing eye. You're not going to give a solution to all the market all the time, and not at once. Okay? Find the path. It can be fast, but you need to find the first stepping stone in order to continue wisely. Look at the innovation, look at its value and its meaning. This is from the entrepreneurship point of view, to balance what the innovator needs to see from their point of view. Build a business model, that's the next lecture. Build a business model and write a business plan. And if you find it difficult writing a business plan, start with the concept note. The concept note is sort of a mini business plan which includes all the elements, and then you can deepen it and evolve it into a business plan. I find it sometimes very useful to work that way. Okay, now a minute and a half on GTIIT. Many of you will soon reach the time where they need to consider university. I want you to be aware that GTIIT exists. This is the Guangdong Technion-Israel Institute of Technology. It's a university in Shantung, in Guangdong, which is a sort of a birthchild or brainchild, combining the Technion, which is the leading institute of technology in Israel, with Shantung University to create a new university. It's a new independent university that brings value from both of these more established institutes. We have mainly, of course, the two themes of any university, which is teaching of academic education and scientific research, but we also emphasize a lot the contribution to the community or the applied research and sharing of research results. There are 8 programs that you can see here: material science, chemical engineering, environmental, robotics, biotechnology, physics, mathematics, and computer science and chemistry. Each is led by a world-renowned researcher, a professor from the Technion, which defines the educational program and leads the research, the research labs and research teams of that program. There are 17 large-scale advanced teaching laboratories and 50 scientific research laboratories right now in GT. And it's a growing, since it's a very young university, only 5 years old. It's growing and will reach in the coming years 300 faculty members and 5,000 students. In this, there is GTEC, which is the unit that I'm working with, the Guangdong Technion Technology Entrepreneurship Center. And the functions of this is following a very clear vision to become a leading center of innovation for fostering technology, entrepreneurship, and developing competitiveness for Guangdong and China, particularly in the industrial ecosystem. We do this by managing intellectual property, by collaborating with industry, by hosting an accelerator and incubator that will be launched soon. So you're welcome. Whatever ideas come out of this competition, this contest, you're welcome to bring to our accelerator and incubator. And of course, we educate industry, government, and any organization on how to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship and how to build intrapreneurship in industrial, technological, research, and other organizations. So with that, and with the focus again on accelerator and incubator, which is eventually the topic of this constant, I thank you very much. Sheshe, toda rabba, and wish all of you success. Your success is our success.
Thank you, Raanan. Thank you. It was such a fascinating